Thank you, Keegan, for joining me here on the Collecting Deadman podcast.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
so for my listeners who don't know exactly who you are, please just tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Keegan Dimitrijevic, and I'm from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So probably think I'm a hockey fan, which I am. And I'm a person who loves professional wrestling, as you can probably see in my background. And I'm here because I'm an Undertaker fan, hence the name of the podcast.
Of course, and us Undertaker fans, we stick together. We are joined by our love of the Deadman. And as I've said many times on the podcast, my first memory of him is him crucifying Stone Cold Steve Austin on the episode of Monday Night Raw, being totally enamored as a young 6-year-old. And
Oh, Mr. Days.
the first question I always ask every guest on here is, what was your first memory of The Undertaker?
Oh man. I know before on air I did tell you I don't remember my first memory of wrestling because I was so young, but I can say the first feud that I fully remember was Undertaker and Randy Orton from 2005. I thought that feud was the feud of the year. And other than that, I'd say I remember the Undertaker and Batista feud from 2007, which I also thought was the feud of the year. So those are really my two first big memories of Taker.
And those are great memories. I vividly remember both of them as well. A couple weeks ago, I talked about the Hell in a Cell match with Randy Orton and how that
So underrated.
it is, and that how that like basically strapped the rocket to Randy Orton. That whole year-long feud with Undertaker showed that Orton can be a main event talent. He can carry a high priority feud with the Undertaker. And even in the one of the documentaries, Orton says, so many times he screwed up in that feud, but Undertaker never gave up hope on him. And it's
Well,
like,
they had great matches. Their
yeah,
matches were all great. Like the SummerSlam one was good. The WrestleMania 21 match was great. The Armageddon Hell in a Cell match is really underrated. They even had a really good one on SmackDown in September of '05 that I remember that not a lot of people talk about, but that was another good one too. So I think it was a good idea to place Orton with Taker because Taker's the most responsible person in the locker room. He's the locker room leader. And, under the right tutelage, he could bring anything out of Randy Orton that Vince wanted. So I thought it was perfect pairing, especially for that time in '05 when Randy was going through a lot of stuff.
yeah. And that's just like coming off his Evolution gig and Mick Foley and everything else. And then you go right to Undertaker, and it's like they made magic. And that was like the first WrestleMania match. People started caring about the streak because Orton made a point about it, and they made it a focal point in the rivalry. So the Randy Orton match is that whole year-long feud is definitely something to be proud of for one of your first memories of him.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and you said your first memories of Adam. Do you have a favorite Undertaker match? I know people ask me that all the time. I can never give a good answer because to me, all the matches are good. No matter if he wins or loses, just seeing him fight is just it's just something different. He gives something different to when he's on the screen, and especially if you're there to see him live. Just him seeing him in a match is just different than anybody else. But everybody says, "What's your favorite match?" So I want to give you the burden of trying to pick a favorite Undertaker match as well.
Oh man, there's about 100. But if I had to think of one off the top of my head, it would have to be Undertaker versus Kurt Angle at No Way Out 2006. That match often doesn't get talked about, but it really is a 5-star clinic. And I thought Taker and Angle always had great chemistry. The psychology in that match was fantastic with Kurt working over Taker's knee and ankle, and Taker being in the spot where he's actually vulnerable, but for a fact he ain't gonna tap regardless if it is Kurt Angle or not. And that final sequence too, where Taker did the choke slam in the last ride and Kurt still countered into the ankle lock. That match was just a thing of beauty, and it was a pure masterclass of a match. So I would say off the top of my head, it would have to be that match.
That's a good match. I wish Undertaker would have won that, of course.
It should have been the main event of WrestleMania 22. I think
Yeah.
all of us agree with that, and even Kurt's said that many times that should have been the main event of that show.
Yeah, I agree, and I was just going to bring it up. Angle said that's one of his favorite matches. Undertaker has said it's one of his favorite matches. I wish they would have dragged the feud out a little longer to WrestleMania. Maybe even
Me too.
after having Undertaker win, maybe having Angle request a rematch, so you maybe draw it out maybe to Backlash or something afterwards. But
That would have been fantastic because Angle shouldn't have moved to ECW, I don't think. Because first of all, he didn't want to, and second, I just think SmackDown would have needed him in '06 anyway, because that was particularly a weaker year for SmackDown in general.
yeah,
Because Benoit was out with an injury for about 5 months. Batista didn't come back till July. Randy moved to Raw and got suspended. Ray ended up getting injured. Undertaker wasn't really placed in anything meaningful, which was unfortunate until I'd say about the feud with Mr. Kennedy, and then that kind of heated up. But Kennedy was also hurt too for a number of months. So, but I think what they could have done too is, and I think we'll get to this eventually, is they could have done like a Taker and Benoit program for '06 after Taker would beat Kurt for the title, and they could have done that triple threat on pay-per-view, which I think would have been money.
yeah. And you mentioned SmackDown being in such a low place. You know it's in a low place when they have to make Great Khali the champion.
Yeah, and Taker tried his best. That's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, Gonzalez 2.0, as I like to say.
He actually did pull a decent last man standing match out of Khali though.
Yeah, and I wish they would have made that into SummerSlam. I know they were supposed to be.
Yeah, wasn't it like the week before or the week after, one of the two?
Yeah, it was
I don't know why they didn't just book that for SummerSlam.
Yeah, I think they probably were like hesitant because I know the month prior at Great American Bash, he had to be like pulled out and replaced by Big Show.
Oh, I remember that match. Yeah.
So they probably didn't.
Sorry, Taker.
Undertaker did not have a good 2006.
And I love Show. I love Big Show too. But
I
mean, man, it's just when you're in that kind of match, like a Punjabi prison match, it's just a hard match to work. So if they would have had a regular singles match, it would have been 10 times better. But
and and they probably made the best of it because I can only imagine Khali in that match with Undertaker. It probably would have been.
Yeah, at least '07 was a better year for Taker, though. He had one of the best years, if not the best year of his career.
Yeah, and they could have done. And I talk about this all the time. Like when you go back and see all the things in the past, you can book Undertaker's career so much better than how they did it.
Yeah. I did do a whole booking of how I would have booked the streak. I mean, but that'll take 3 hours to explain. But Taker and Kurt would have happened at 22. Yeah. And and Taker and Batista would have went on last at 23. Mm-hmm. So that's all I'll say for now about that.
Yeah. And that could be a whole nother episode. We talk about rebooking the streak and everything.
For sure.
Yeah. But I definitely think that they missed the mark with Angle and maybe even dragging that into maybe having more people added to the feud, giving Undertaker a nice long title reign. Maybe eventually.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, dropping it to like a returning Batista, which sets up the match at WrestleMania the next year.
For sure. I wouldn't have even minded a Taker and Regal program at that time. I think that's one that may have went under the radar, but I think Regal should have been used in a better role at that time, especially with everybody injured. I think that would have been the time to have tried Regal in the main event scene. And I think Taker and Regal could have had some great matches if they would have just let those two guys go. Yeah. So that's another theory I have too. But I don't know. Taker's 06 was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, very interesting. And is that when Regal was with King Booker?
Yes, with King Booker and Fit Finlay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 06 is not a good year.
3 great workers, but wasn't a fan of the stable.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned when we were talking, getting this thing set up, about missed opportunities with feuds for The Undertaker.
Yes.
And I agreed with the ones that you talked about. And I just want to give the listeners your point of view of the ones that you thought that The Undertaker should have had feuds with, because we were just talking about this just previously with dragging out Kurt Angle and now William Regal, and I know you brought up a couple ones in messages. So here's your chance to talk about missed opportunity feuds for The Undertaker.
Well, the thing is, it's like in wrestling, we always say what if, because there's always dream matches and there's always dream feuds that we want to see. Some happen, some don't. Like Taker and Sting. but that's not one of the two because Sting wasn't in the WWE at the time. I wish he would have been, but that's for probably a whole other episode. But the two I was thinking about were obviously one was Eddie Guerrero. I think even the Undertaker has said this on interviews that he thinks that he and Eddie Guerrero would have had one heck of a program, and I think we would probably all agree.
Yeah.
They did. I heard they had some really good house show matches in 2005. I think it was in August of 2005. And if anybody remembers that's listening, there was a really hidden gem of a match at Armageddon in 2004. It was JBL against Booker T, Eddie Guerrero, and The Undertaker. And one of the very few times Guerrero and Taker interacted, but they literally had like a 4-star mini match on their own in that match where like Eddie hit the frog splashes and then he brought out the ladder and hit the frog splash on Taker, and Taker, kicked out, sat up, and Eddie had like the greatest facial expression to that. And just seeing that made me want to see that feud for like a year long. And I think if Eddie would have not unfortunately passed away, I think 2006, even to WrestleMania 23 and back up Batista and Taker to another year, I think Eddie and Taker in the main event of 23 would have been something.
Yeah. They may have even put him in 22 if they didn't give Undertaker the title shot. They may have gotten.
That's true.
Guerrero.
Yeah, wasn't Eddie supposed to face Shawn? Was that the original plan? Was that Eddie was going to face Shawn at 22? Because that's what I heard, and I think that would have been,
If
something too.
That was the case, if Guerrero would have lived another year, 23 probably would have gotten Taker.
That would have been, oh man, a classic with Shawn and then a classic with Taker at 23.
Yeah.
So sign me up.
Yeah, and I remember that photo of Guerrero because that's the photo of Undertaker sitting up and Guerrero being shot. That's the photo that they, like on WWE's promotion for that match. If you want to watch the match on YouTube,
Money shot.
That's the money shot they use. And
yeah, there was chemistry there.
It was, and it just shows like how Undertaker works so well with smaller guys.
Yeah. For sure. Which leads me to my next guy. I think you look at these two guys who have been on SmackDown for how many years? You got Benoit and you got Taker. Mm-hmm. Both of them have been on SmackDown for how long? They were both really SmackDown originals. And to my recollection, they've only had about 2-3 singles matches together. They did the one at Rebellion 2000, which wasn't too bad, but was short. And then they had, I think, one on Raw and one on SmackDown in the same year in 2000. But they also, too, if anybody is a SmackDown guru and they love SmackDown, will remember that there was a triple threat right after SummerSlam. It was Angle, Benoit, and Taker. Really good match. It was a really good match. It should have been on pay-per-view.
That's the number one contendership match, right?
Yeah, for the undisputed title. And then Undertaker faced Brock at Unforgiven because of that. So it was a really good match, and Taker and Benoit had some really good sequences, and Undertaker ended up winning with the last ride to Benoit. And it's like, man, that was like a pre-appetizer, for something that could have happened. And I think even when Chris returned in 06 after his sabbatical, I think that could have been a feud leading into the Royal Rumble, even for the title. So like, if we're going to go back a little bit, Taker can beat Kurt for the title, and then Benoit can take the title off Taker. Benoit drops it to Batista, which leads to Taker winning the Rumble. Mm-hmm. And then you can have Benoit and Regal for WrestleMania 23, and then you can also have Taker and Batista in the main event. Or you could still do Benoit and MVP, because that was good too, but I think Benoit and Regal was more fitting for a Mania match. So that feud should have definitely happened along with Taker and Guerrero. Mm-hmm. Those are the two that come to my mind. Yeah.
And I know Undertaker and Benoit, they were in that multi-man match at Unforgiven in 2000.
Yes.
So
they were in that 4-way. Yeah.
So it's like Undertaker is like always in the mix and like multi-man matches with these two, but never got the chance to showcase it on the big stage.
And it's too bad because I remember too, I think it was in February or March of 2007, Benoit was doing an interview in the UK for a WrestleMania 23 press conference, and they asked him who his favorite opponents were, and he said, Triple H and Booker T, and I think Finlay was in there too. And he said the one person that I've never had a big singles program with was with The Undertaker. So I think if everything would have came to fruition, I think that would have eventually happened. Mm-hmm. And if it did happen, oh man, I think we would have had some really good pay-per-view matches out of those two, because Benoit and Kurt are very similar, so you could imagine what Benoit and Taker would do on pay-per-view, with 25-30 minutes, especially with Taker in his physical peak in like 06, 07. So yeah, that's definitely one feud that if I could go back in time, I would have wanted to have seen.
Yeah. Definitely in '06, I think that was like the best time to do it.
Yes, I agree.
If he would have not done what he had done in '07, probably we would have gotten like Undertaker Benoit instead of like the Undertaker Henry feud we got near the end of the
Yeah,
year.
that would have been nice. Yeah, or even at a future Mania. And I remember I talked to one of my friends with this on Twitter about a Benoit and Taker feud, and I said, let's say if we're gonna theorize, okay, Chris Benoit, let's say he has to retire in like 2008 or 2009, right? They find out about his concussions and whatever, and they say, hey, listen, and they kind of do what they did to Daniel Bryan. They say you can't wrestle anymore, you got to stop because it's just gonna get worse.
Mm-hmm.
But WrestleMania 27 happens to be in Atlanta,
Oh,
and
that's right.
he's gonna go in the Hall of Fame. He's gonna be the number one inductee going to the Hall of Fame in Atlanta because he's already been retired for 2 or 3 years at this point. But then he never had that last match. So the old gunfighter, Chris Benoit, comes out of retirement, one last fight, and he wants to try and take down the streak.
Mm.
And it's Benoit and Taker. It's never happened before at a big stage. It's very rarely ever been done. Two legends of their generation. And then Taker goes what I think would be like 19-0 at that time, and then Benoit can ride off into the sunset with that big Mania program, just going in the Hall of Fame. And then I think that would have been the perfect way for him to go out if everything would have fell into pieces. But that's just speculation at best.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like pulling a Ric Flair. Ric Flair goes in the Hall of Fame
Yeah.
before and then has his final match the next day.
It's like that Terry Funk one last ride. Like, I have one good fight left in me, and I'm gonna give it everything I have.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those like old Western movies where that gunfighter comes back for that one last fight to see if he can still pull it off. So I love stories like that. So I think that would have been perfect for a WrestleMania.
Yeah, and of course, if you take away the whole tragedy thing, they probably would have been more susceptible to clear him for a match. Now they wouldn't.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially with a few years, and I'm no expert, but I think with a few years off of not taking bumps, it probably would have helped. So, it helped, Daniel Bryan, look at where he's at. He's 100%. And, he missed out on a couple of years of his prime, but he came back better than ever and had that great heel run with the WWE title and put over Kofi at Mania, which was one of my favorite moments. He had a classic with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series in 2018, which is one of my favorite matches ever. And so sometimes you just need a break. Like I know it's a different injury, but look at Edge.
Yeah.
They told him, like, listen, man, you bump again, you're gonna die. You have that chance. If you fall the wrong way, you're gonna die, or you're gonna be paralyzed. And 9 years later, after he got that second fusion, he's back and at 47, he's still one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
So the possibility was definitely there. And I think if Benoit would have received the help that he could have had, I think, we would obviously remember him in a different way, but we also would have gotten a great feud with Taker.
Yeah.
So.
Of course, yeah. If you're altering the history here, WWE changed the whole concussion stuff and everything. Yes. They deal with the the doctors and everything because of what happened with Benoit. If that never happened, you changing all of the stuff that's they can clear people.
It's sad it had to get to that point.
Yeah, it is.
Yep, it's sad it had to get to that point, but I know I'm going a bit off topic, but if for anybody who's starting in the business now, they're going to feel more comfortable, because if you do have a concussion, or if they even think you're injured, you're probably not going to compete that night. At best, you're going to go out there and cut a promo.
Yeah.
If even. So it's like, I think that's a good thing, because a lot of guys from the older days that you see from the 70s and even 80s and even 90s now, they don't have an old age. A lot of these guys, they either overdose on painkillers, or or they can't walk, or they can barely move, or their memory's depleted. And, it's just a sad thing to see. Like, there's been a couple wrestlers that I've met, and I won't mention who they are on air. I will off air, but I had met a couple of them, and they were super nice guys, but I felt bad for the state that they were in. Like they couldn't walk properly. And I was, I asked one of them to take a picture, and he had a really hard time sitting up to get up to take the picture. And I kind of guilted myself after for asking, but I didn't know. So it's just stuff like that, and hopefully the people that are in the same generation as I am, when they're done wrestling, whatever age that might be, they can still be able to walk when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the Benoit tragedy with the concussion stuff was for the better in the end. It just sucks that it had to have a casualty in one of the probably 5 best performers I've ever seen. But
It's
on
like,
with Taker.
yeah, I mean, it's like that with everything. It just takes one huge bad thing to happen.
Well, look at the NFL, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
then
and I'm not even a National Football League fan, but you can see how the game's going to be changing because of concussions. So, like, look at Samoa Joe. Still won't clear him. No one will.
yeah,
You know, and it sucks because Samoa Joe's great, but at least I don't know. At least Taker was clear most of the time, right? Since we're talking about Taker.
and I was just gonna say, Undertaker said this many times. Austin, Triple H, it like in the Attitude Era, and even before, if you were injured, you went out there.
Yeah. Well,
Triple
Taker
H,
broke a whole rack of ribs.
yeah, Triple H said he saw Undertaker duct taping a vest to his ribs
Yeah.
so they don't pop out of his skin, just so because he was advertised to fight, he was going to go out there and fight.
Broken orbital bone too. I remember that with Mabel, and he got that mask made, that white Phantom mask, and still went out and worked. And most people would be out of commission, but that's why Taker's so respected, because I don't think anybody could do what he did physically in that ring, because like most guys would be out 6 months to a year. And I know I heard this story too. I think it might have been Dave Meltzer that reported it. He said he had dinner with one of the top guys in the company in 1997 and said, Taker's great and all, but be lucky if he has another year left. And then he still went another 12 years after that, if not more, so that's a testament to how tough Taker is. And especially like in the last Ride documentaries, I think we saw how tough he was with all the hip injuries. And, it's unreal what he's put his body through. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for him, I don't think WWE would be where it's at right now.
Exactly.
He's the most important star besides, like, I think him, Austin, and Bruno Sammartino probably the 3 most important stars in the history of the business. I really do.
Yeah, and, you got Hogan and Andre who brought like the mainstream into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, WrestleMania for sure. Yep.
And then you have Undertaker and Stone Cold who made sure the house didn't fall.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It's like I always say that Bruno started it, Hogan carried it, Austin carried it and brought it back to prominence, but Taker was the one constant that just kept going and never ever really fell. He was always really the guy. Even though WWE has their thing, their one guy system where it's like, okay, we're going to put Hogan at the top, and then we're going to put Warrior at the top, and then Savage, and then Austin and Rock and Triple H and guys like that. But really, Taker was always deep down the guy. And I think Vince would admit that.
I know. I think he would too. It's just something, Undertaker's always been like, Vince always knew he had him.
He's the most reliable, man. He's the most reliable go-to performer you could ever have. And even Vince said it. You'd want to be in the foxhole with Taker if you had to be there. That'd be the guy.
If anything ever happened to anybody in the company, Vince still knew that Undertaker was on call and if he needed him.
Absolutely. And I think that still remains true to this day, because I feel like, and I'm not saying that Taker's going to wrestle again, but if Vince absolutely needed him, he would do it.
That's what I think.
So,
yeah. That's even what he said at the end of the last Ride documentary.
Exactly.
He wants to be done, but if Vince needs him, he'll be there.
And I know Drew McIntyre keeps telling Vince to ask him, because Drew really wants that match now that he's seasoned.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Taker went out in a great way with AJ Styles. So
yeah,
I don't really know if there's much left to prove.
I know. I always say that, but I'm selfish, and I would love to see him fight again.
But I'll still mark out. Like, if Taker comes back, I'm obviously going to mark out. I don't care what year it is. I'm still going to be a fan at heart. And I'm going to, 5 to 10-year-old me is going to come out anytime I see Taker. Like, I still pop and jump out of my seat. No matter how I'm feeling that day, no matter what's going on, if Taker's showing up, you can bet I'm going to be there.
My favorite.
In front of my TV.
Mm-hmm. My favorite saying is from Bruce Pritchard. He always says that Undertaker could be 70 years old and in a walker, but people will still pay tickets to see him come out and raise the lights.
Yeah, I mean, Taker could be out on his deathbed, no pun intended, and I think people would still want to see Taker because it's Taker.
Yeah.
He's a, he's a commodity, he's a draw, and I know we'll probably get into this later, but I think when Taker does go in the Hall of Fame, he should be the only one that goes in that year.
Yeah. I've said, yeah.
Because I just think it's such a big moment, and they've treated him like he's the greatest of all time, which in my opinion he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's been nobody's ever been like that and gone that long and been that consistent. And especially taking a gimmick that was supposed to be a throwaway gimmick and turned it to the greatest gimmick ever. You're the best ever on that, right on the spot. Especially with how great he was in the ring too,
Mm-hmm.
and you add that on top and his storytelling ability. Man, it's like the perfect worker.
Yeah. And they can make a whole night out of just like his friends and past rivals coming out talking about stories about it.
Oh, that would be awesome. Just like every hour or so, or half an hour, have people come out, like have Kane come out, Vince, Eve Shane, the Godfather, the whole Bone Street crew, minus Yokozuna, God rest his soul. But, like they could do stuff like that and it would be awesome. It'd be a huge draw. And especially if fans are back, man, you'd get a huge crowd for that.
Yeah. And you have all these, and then I would have Vince be the final inductor, and then Undertaker comes out.
Yeah, I still want him to come out in his gear though. I don't want it. I want it, man. If Taker comes out in his gear, but still like out of character, it'd be like the coolest thing ever. Because I'm just like, I used to question when I was younger if Undertaker was even a gimmick. So that's how good he was. We actually thought, of Taker in that way, that he was actually like that in real life. So, and when you have people intrigued like that, you've done your job.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I didn't even see him do anything except hang Austin on a cross, rolling his eyes in the back of his head, and I've been a fan for like 23 years.
My grandmother, when we used to watch wrestling, Serbian lady, and she had a great accent too. I love European accents. She would watch The Undertaker with me, and I wouldn't say she hated The Undertaker, but she didn't love him either. I think she was more scared of him. It's like that thing, you'd rather be feared than loved. I think that's Taker, even though everyone loves him but fears him. Mm-hmm. And he took his hat off and he rolled his eyes in the back of his head, and the thunder went and everything, and she like went like this and just like cringed away, and I remember just laughing. I was just laughing because she thought wrestling was real. And I'm eventually going to tell that story in other projects I'm doing, but she thought wrestling was real, and she thought Taker was real. So therefore I thought it was real.
That just speaks to the testament of his character and just him, sticking to it for 30 years.
Yeah, and especially too, just think, sorry if I'm getting too ahead, but just think if Vince wouldn't have broke the streak at 30 and he could have got like another 6-7 Manias at a Taker. Yeah. With that streak, and that would have been 7 big drawing points. And I think I'm in the majority. I don't think the streak should have ended. I really don't think it should have ended at all. I agree. Some people disagree because they think it's good for the business, but I look at it this way. Sometimes wins and losses don't always matter. Mm-hmm. And when you're in a singles match with Taker at WrestleMania, which is the equivalent to the Stanley Cup Finals in Game 7, and you're in that spot with him one-on-one in a singles match, you're already put over. Yeah. It already proves how the company thinks of you. Yeah. So you're already automatically put over. It doesn't really matter, to be one of those people that was in a streak match with Taker, you're already put on a pedestal. Mm-hmm. Look at Randy Orton, and I know we talked about Randy Orton earlier. He was the Legend Killer, and everyone thought, oh, Legend Killer, okay, he's breaking Taker's streak. He didn't break Taker's streak, but Randy Orton got more over by just facing Taker in that whole program and even at Mania. And it didn't mean anything in the end that he lost. So, and a lot of people get confused with wins and losses. Just because you lose doesn't mean you're done. It's not like, if you've seen that SpongeBob GIF thing where it shows like him and Patrick standing there with the casket and it says, okay, get in. I see a lot of people post that after somebody loses, and that's not always the case. Like in some cases, yeah, I get it when it's a complete burial, and I'm sure we have many examples, but losing the Taker at Mania is not one of those. No.
And I think that's I always think that's probably Vince's greatest blunder.
Oh man, you should have seen some people at that theater when he lost. There was a BS chant going.
Yeah, I saw
People
people.
were not happy.
I saw people leave the arena at WrestleMania when I watching at home and network. People were just leaving.
In Canada, we didn't have the network yet. So what we used to do is go. There was a place in my city called Silver City, and it was like a huge movie theater, and that's where all the wrestling marks used to go, and we'd all sit and converse with each other. And I'm usually not a social person, but I would converse with wrestling fans, and we would all talk about the card and Taker and Brock, even though it wasn't a great match, which we all know because Taker was injured. But I was mad, and my dad was there with me. He was mad. He hasn't really watched it since they did break the streak. And he told me that it came down to the reason that Vince knew that his card was crap, if we're staying PG, and he wanted something to talk about because my dad thought it was a lousy card.
It was.
And that's that's subjective. We're all entitled to our opinions, which he didn't like the card at all because he thought it was really lazily put together, especially for the 30th anniversary. And he didn't like that Taker lost because they ruined something big. If Brock would have beat Taker at SummerSlam, I think everyone would have been fine with that. Oh, yeah. Like if Taker would have beat him at WrestleMania 30 and then Brock beat him at SummerSlam 14, there would have been no issue.
No, who cares? Because nobody remembers SummerSlam.
Yeah, usually not. Yeah. But they also made that mistake with Brock where he lost to Cena and Triple H and he really shouldn't have. So I think Vince Vince felt like he needed to give Brock that win, that really big win, because he had already lost 2 matches and he was only like 2 years back in the company. So I understand that point of view, but Hunter and
those two.
Well, Triple H and Cena should have went over. That's I think a lot of people agree on that, but I think if Brock in this entire run would have literally just lost to Taker and not anybody else, like via pinfall, it wouldn't have hurt anybody.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's like I wish Taker had a title like that around though.
I know. I love the title you have there. But yeah, getting back to the streak, I don't know if like the business, I don't know if it ever fully recovered from it.
I don't think WrestleMania has. I
don't think WrestleMania has at least, but it just seems like something lost it that night.
A little luster was lost. I agree, because what happened when you took the streak away was there was a lot of momentum leading into Mania about that streak, and you took away an entire storyline that was ongoing but never got stale. Mm-hmm. And you took that forever because and then they had him lose again to Roman at 33. So they took away that streak, and then Undertaker's drawing power at Mania, unfortunately, as much as I hate to admit it, it diminished because he didn't have the streak. So his matches, even though it was still a big match because it was Taker on the card, it didn't mean as much because there was nothing on the line. It was a singles match. Mm-hmm. So I don't agree with them breaking the streak. I listened to Vince's explanation on the Stone Cold podcast about breaking it, and I thought it was a very, in all due respect to Vince, but I thought it was a very short-sighted, irrational decision, and he really didn't think it out. I think he thought it out for like 10 minutes and then went, okay, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. And it didn't benefit anybody in the long run because he essentially gave the explanation that he wanted to build up Brock for WrestleMania 31, which was the next year. And then Brock was going to drop the title. And it's like, Brock was already built up. He built himself up in 2002. Mm-hmm. And then he built himself up back in the UFC after he left. And then he built himself back up when he beat Triple H after he shouldn't have even lost in the first place. And then he beat CM Punk in that great match at SummerSlam. So Brock didn't need to be built up. Brock's Brock. He's a draw regardless if he's WWE champion or not. He's going to be a draw wherever he is on the card. Mm-hmm. So I think Vince's explanation wasn't adequate.
Yeah. It's also, it seems like he knows he fucked up, but he won't admit that he did.
And I think Taker, but Taker's a company guy, so Taker's going to do whatever Vince tells him. But Taker did tell Vince, per the Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold, he said, I don't think Brock needs it. Mm-hmm. But if that's what you want to do, then I guess that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, because
And I really wish Taker, and I know it sounds selfish, but I really wish Taker would have put his ego first that day.
me too. Undertaker is
Because
very selfless. He always puts Vince and the business first, but I feel like on many occasions he should have put his foot down.
I wish he would have, because I think something got ruined with WrestleMania. And and I'm not trying to sound like one of those disgruntled fans who just hates everything that the WWE does, because I don't, but when you take something away that special, and especially with no benefit to it at the end, it wasn't like Roman Reigns beat him when Roman Reigns was just starting, or it wasn't like somebody who needed it like Bray Wyatt at that time, And I'm not saying that they should have broke the streak in general, but if you absolutely had to break the streak, it should have been to someone who would have benefited their entire career. Like if Bray Wyatt would have came in as the cult leader and beat the Undertaker, even if it was at SummerSlam or whatever, that would have made Bray Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
But he went with the established vet and Brock, and I don't think it benefited anybody because they didn't really have any lead up to it. Yeah. And then they shied away from it. And then they had, a couple good matches, at SummerSlam and Hell in a Cell. And then, which was good, don't get me wrong, but it should have been the other way around.
I agree. And it's something that, what I was going to say.
It should have been Brock trying to avenge the WrestleMania loss and not Taker. That's what I think.
Exactly. And it's
and
like.
Then Brock beats him himself.
Undertaker went in, he said he in that morning of the WrestleMania, he thought he was winning.
Yeah,
and
because he's supposed to go over until the last couple hours.
Yeah, and then Vince springs it on him, and then he talks to Vince like, "You sure you want to do this because it's so late to the game and everything?" And Vince, "Oh, I know what I'm doing and everything," and he didn't.
It was a very rational decision.
Yeah,
very impulsive too. Yeah, I agree.
And that's very unlike Vince.
Yeah, because Vince
likes to think things out.
Yeah, he thinks things out, and he always has something planned going into the future. And I don't think that day he had anything besides Daniel Bryan winning the title. That was literally all he had for that card. Because let's face it, if you take away the Daniel Bryan story from WrestleMania 30, it's a pretty forgettable show. Yeah, it's a very forgettable show.
And it's just show that should have meant so much since it's the 30th anniversary.
I don't think it helped because there was a lot of things going on. Like they lost CM Punk, the crowd turned on Batista, but they should have known better and just went with Bryan anyway because he was red hot. And then they should have did the Wyatts and the Shield for Mania. That would have been perfect for WrestleMania. I don't know how that happened on the pay-per-view before, which was the Chamber. I don't know how that happened before Mania. That should have been like a huge match for WrestleMania 30. And then they could have done Bryan and Hunter still, and then Bryan and Orton in the main event or something like that, or just they could have done something like that. But if they could have kept Punk around, I would have done Punk and Bryan as the main event for that show. But that's wishful thinking.
Yeah, and they were gonna have Punk fight and lose to Triple H, if I remember correctly.
I think he was gonna win. I think Punk was supposed to win. Yeah. That's what he said on the Cole Cabana podcast anyway. I don't know if Vince was scheduling him to win, but Punk said on the...
Well, you know how Vince was that morning. Anything could have happened.
But Vince will tell you you're going over, and then all of a sudden, the day you get there, hey, Hunter's going to pedigree you, and then boom, see you later. Yeah. So, something like that could have happened, but at the same time, it's like Punk had already worked Triple H enough at that point. So I would have done Punk and Bryan for Mania 30 in the main event. I think that's a match everybody would have wanted, and it would have been great. It's two people that they love, and Daniel Bryan could have had his moment. You could have created the story that, Punk already had his moment. He had his long title run that was over a year long, and now it's Bryan's time, and then Bryan beats Punk. Mm-hmm. That's what I would have done. But
and going back to Punk, it goes back to your other point that you made. He lost to Undertaker, and that didn't even hurt him.
No, and Punk had no problem putting over Taker, but Punk was putting over everybody in 2013. He put over Rock twice, and then Rock went away after Mania, and then he put over Taker, which wasn't it wasn't bad at all because you're facing Taker at Mania, but then he put over Brock, and then Brock goes away until the Royal Rumble, and then so I get his frustration, but he loved wrestling Taker, but he thought he and Taker should have went on last, and I agree.
I agree they should have won on last.
It should have been for the title. It should have been Streak versus title. One has to give. That's what I would have done.
You would have kept Punk is champion
Yes.
going into and have Undertaker challenge for the title.
Yes. So what I would have done is the year before, I would have turned John Cena heel
Okay.
against The Rock at WrestleMania 28. Beat him in Miami.
Oh, that's right.
Right in the main event. John Cena low blows him, knocks down the ref, does the Rock's people's elbow, hits him with the Rock bottom, and then attitude adjustment, win.
Okay.
Heel turn done. John Cena beats Punk and then has the summer of Cena in 2012 as the heel champion. And then Punk can eventually go heel too, but then Cena drops the title back to Punk. And then Punk goes back to being a delusional heel after he beats Cena. And then Undertaker can win the Rumble in 13 as a shot.
Okay.
And
so
then
even Undertaker 2 Royal Rumble wins.
Yeah,
That's
two
good.
Rumble wins.
He deserved more than one.
Yeah, he should have won more than one. And then what you can do is have the 500 day, because it would have been like day 500 by the time Mania rolled around. So day 500 title run, longest of the modern era against the 20-0 streak, and one has to give. And that's the tagline. And then Punk's title reign gives, Undertaker wins the title, and then you do a 3-way at the next pay-per-view between Cena, Punk, and Taker.
Ooh.
And then Cena can win the title back after beating Rocket Mania again. And then Punk can go away for a while to heal up. Taker goes away till next year's Mania to eventually feud with John Cena and get his revenge. And then Cena can still drop the title to Daniel Bryan. That's what I would have done. But
okay.
I don't know if it sounds too convoluted, but Cena can take the title off Taker at the pay-per-view, which is Extreme Rules, after Mania 29, and then Taker can come back in 2014, throw Cena out of the Rumble, even though Taker's not in it. He just appears and throws him out to cost him. And then you get Cena and Taker for 30.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would have done.
No,
and then that way you book Taker for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I always wanted Cena and Undertaker at 30.
Yeah, that's what should have happened.
That's what should have happened.
And then when we got it 34, it was 2 minutes.
Yeah, Undertaker trains for 30. He gets 3.
And he looked great.
Yeah,
he looked fantastic. And he probably could have done a 20-minute match. And
yeah,
I don't know. At least he went over. I don't know. At least he went over. So I guess I was happy.
That's true. Because you never know with Cena.
Well, I mean, I think there's enough respect there that if Taker's going over, Taker's going over.
I don't think they would have brought him back to lose back to back.
No, definitely not. And then he ended up facing AJ. He skipped out on 35, and then he faced AJ last year, and I didn't even know what to think when I heard it was going to be a boneyard match, because we know a lot of Buried Alive matches aren't good. Like, the only other good one was Taker and Mankind, and the rest of them weren't that good. So I didn't know what to expect, but Taker and AJ, they tore the roof off. The proverbial roof. There wasn't really a roof, but.
And it's like the only 2 Buried Alive matches he ever won. The Mankind and AJ.
Yeah, and he lost the rest of them. Lost to Vince, lost to Kane, lost to Austin.
Oh, my God.
Don't gimmick match, man.
I know. But
hey, I mean, the guy's had the greatest career of all time, so he turned something that was never supposed to work into the greatest phenomenon in pro wrestling history. So,
yeah.
I mean, he's made his mark, that's for sure. No pun intended.
No pun intended. But, sometimes I like, revisiting history, seeing what you would have done differently and everything.
Absolutely.
And your idea of Undertaker beating Punk for the championship at 29 is something I never really thought about. I didn't really think about, Undertaker capturing the title there. But I think to set up Cena at 30, I think it works perfectly right there.
Well, because then he has a reason to go after him. He took the title from him, and then so Cena's in the Rumble, not the champion anymore, but he wants it back, and then Taker costs him in the Rumble. Gong goes off, Taker stands in the ring, throws him out, and leaves. Yeah. And then boom, there's your Mania program. So
you would have switched the winners for the Rock ones. You would have had Cena win the first one and Rock win the rematch.
I would have Cena win both. Believe it or not.
Cena win both.
Yeah, and the reason why is because Rock's schedule was not reliable, and the Rock's so selfless that I don't think Rock would have necessarily cared.
Mm-hmm.
If it made sense. Because Cena's still going to be around for years after this. Rock's not going to wrestle again unless if you really count that Mania 32 match with, Rowan. But that doesn't really count. So Rock hasn't wrestled really since that match at 29. And if we're going to know that and Rock's not going to be around, but Cena's going to be there the next day, what's the point of having Cena lose? So Cena can go heel for 1 year, turn heel at 28, and then still go into 29 as a heel, but vow that he wants to beat The Rock clean and still have a sense of integrity. And then he can beat The Rock clean, and then Rock goes away back off to Tinseltown, and then Cena can resume his babyface run after having a really good 1 year heel run. That's what I would have done. And then that way the crowd gets their Cena heel turn. It happens. It's good. And then it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not too long. And then back to normal. That's what I would have done.
That's interesting. And also, I wonder what would have happened in the Punk Undertaker match if Paul Bearer didn't die. I'm
thinking the original plan was Paul Bearer was going to manage him. It wasn't since Punk had Heyman, Taker would bring in Paul Bearer, and that'd be the plan.
Wow.
I think that would have been awesome. I would have loved that.
I wonder if the winner would have changed. I don't know. I don't know if they.
I really don't know.
I don't know if Undertaker would have said to have Punk break it, because Undertaker always wanted someone, who was on up and coming, to take it.
I think we found that out with Brock, that Vince wanted it to be somebody established, which, but Punk and him had a great match.
I agree.
I mean, it was one of the best matches of the year.
One of the best matches of the year. I like the 09 feud, and I like the revisiting in 13.
Yeah, they had great chemistry, and I'm happy that it happened at a WrestleMania.
Me too.
I wanted Undertaker and Jeff Hardy for a WrestleMania too. If Jeff Hardy would have stuck around, during those prime years, I would have loved to have seen that too. And Jeff Hardy wanted it too. He wanted to wrestle Undertaker and Hell in a Cell and Swanton off the top.
Yeah, I mean, that's someone. If Undertaker wants to come back and fight again, I'm sure he can trust Jeff Hardy to give him a good match.
I still love Jeff, man. I still do. I still watch that Raw match between him and Jeff Hardy from July 1st, 02, time to time. It's one of my favorite ladder matches ever. Just the story's so brilliantly told and well done. And
it is.
But since we're moving on to later years, you've met Taker.
Yes.
What was it like?
It was everything I hoped it to be. Only I wish it was longer.
Me too, man.
I met him twice. I met him in 2015, right before he had a SummerSlam match against
Brock.
Yeah. And then I met him again in November of 2019. And
so lucky. You met him twice?
I met him twice.
That's a rarity.
It is. And the first time I met him, I had him sign the photo we took. And at the end of the meeting, I gave him one of those little thumb wrestlers of himself.
Oh yeah, I know.
And I told him how I've been a fan for over 20 years, and how he was the reason that I'm a fan of wrestling, and I'm a collector of his stuff, and I just wanted to give you something. And he looked at it, and I'll always remember what he said. He said, "Thanks, buddy, for this. I'm going to need this on Sunday." And
he hits Brock in the head with it and somehow goes over.
Exactly. And then when I met him again in 2019, I told him that how I met him a few years prior, and that I gave him a thumb wrestler, and then he leaned back in his chair and he goes, "Okay, I think I remember that."
Well, that's awesome.
And I said, well, I wanted to keep the tradition alive of giving you something, so I gave him one of those little Funko mystery minis of himself.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, thank you again for giving me something." And he put it in, and he proceeded to put it in his pocket. And
that's awesome.
I know, and I sometimes I think, somewhere in his house he may have these things somewhere in display or in a drawer or somewhere.
Guess one day we're gonna have to find out when there's an Undertaker exhibit and in the Wrestling Hall of Fame when they make one. I looked
very closely in that Most Wanted Treasures episode when he went into his storage locker, see if it was in any of those.
Oh yeah. I can't believe that purple jacket that he had, that Phantom jacket, was still in mint condition and just sitting in a storage unit.
I know.
And now it's going to be it, because I think WWE's making a physical Hall of Fame. That's what I think their goal is. They're going to make a real, like how they have the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. They're going to do a WWE one, and I'm assuming Orlando or even Stanford. So
I hope so. I hope they make good use of everything they're getting with this.
I'll go in a heartbeat. I would go in a heartbeat. Even though I'm from Canada, I would get on a flight in Detroit, and I'd be heading to Florida.
I'm in Florida, so we'll make it a meetup.
Yeah, we're gonna have to around the Performance Center where where I'm gonna sweat and probably take bad bumps.
You know, they already have something so great in the archives. You know, I hope that maybe they maybe make that the museum or something, or just create like a whole huge building dedicated to it.
Oh, I got something I'm putting in my archives that I have a Taker. I got that 8x10 of us going face to face, man. And I
Really?
have 2 of them. I have 2 copies. Yeah, I'm just saving up some money because I want to get it framed like with a collage and stuff.
Ooh,
And I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna put it up back here. And
nice.
it's gonna be. I managed to get 2 pictures with him. So the first picture, I didn't even look in the camera. He held this. I asked him to hold this, and he did. And then they said after, because apparently you weren't supposed to have props in the photo ops. I don't know why.
Whoa,
And
really?
yeah, because it was like, okay, you guys get like 10, 15 seconds, and then, say something to him, take your picture, and then go. Because he was only supposed to be there for like 2 hours or something. But I think he stayed extra. I think he stayed extra.
Oh,
I
yeah,
really think
they
he
did.
did.
Because they only had him like for 2 hours for us too.
Yeah.
And after I got my picture and after I talked to him and everything, I walked around the center, like like wherever that was.
Yeah.
And that was like, and I walked around and I did stuff, and like 2 hours later, he was still like signing autographs.
Yeah, because I mean, if somebody's gonna pay that much to get, take your autographs, like you can't leave them hanging. You got to give them what they
No.
came for. So I traveled 3 hours to go to Niagara Falls, where he was, to go and meet him because that's where he was gonna be at. I'm in Windsor, which is like one of the most southern parts of Ontario. It's right across from Detroit,
Okay.
and Niagara Falls is right by Toronto. It's like an hour from each other. So it's we had to drive 3 hours, and then I met everyone else the day before because Taker was scheduled for Sunday. So I met Road Warrior Animal, I met Paul Orndorff, I met Sergeant Slaughter, all great guys to meet. It's too bad Animal passed away, God rest his soul, but he was fantastic to me. I got a whole bunch of stuff signed from him and got a picture taken with him. And I actually have the 4x6 picture up on my shelf right here of Animal and I.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
And he was awesome. He was awesome to meet. He was super cool, and I always heard he was the nice Road Warrior. That's what Rob Van Dam said too. But so I met Taker the day after, and I remember that night I did not sleep good because I was like so worried that I wasn't going to get there on time to meet him because I knew the line was going to be ballistic.
Oh.
So the line was going to be nuts, and the line was big. I'm happy I had those fast lane tickets because if I wouldn't have, I would have been waiting a really long time. And I went there and I had 6 autographs that I wanted to get signed. I saved up. I had 6 Undertaker tickets for autographs, and I remember they said the limit's 3, and I'm like, I'm getting 6. So what happened?
This is odd. This is an odd one because I know in ones I did, people took pictures with props. They gave them titles to hold and everything.
Yeah, it was so micromanaged, and I
And
don't
there
know
was
why.
people that had like 5 or 10 stuff that he was signing in line that I saw.
Yeah, and you weren't allowed to personalize anything. They said, guys, no personalizations. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I'm still getting to take your autograph. It's not like I'm ever gonna, never like I'm gonna sell them anyway. I don't do that. I don't get guys autographs and sell them on eBay, so I don't gotta work for 2 weeks. But so they said there's a limit for 3 autographs, and I had 6, and I was like, no, I'm getting 6 freaking autographs. Like it's happening. So I had my family with me, and the one person that I had with me went up with me to Taker. So they had 3 things. I had 3 things. And I walked, and Taker was sitting there. He had his toque on, and, his hair was bunded up in the back. And I was sitting there, and I saw the tattoos right here. So I knew it was Taker. I was like, oh, my God, it's Taker. Whoa, okay. So I walked up to him. I told him, I said, it's an absolute honor. I think you're the greatest of all time. You're my, you're one of my 2 heroes. And I told him about how I used to always go to the theater because all I cared about was his match. I didn't care about nothing else really going on the card. And he said he was happy that he could, be that for me, and probably for like millions of other people too. But I had that title signed, which he also held in the picture that I did not look in the camera for because I'm really bad at looking into a camera. I had the Unmatched Fury sign that he had. The defining moments one from Survivor Series '96.
Mm-hmm.
First ever Hasbro I had signed,
Oh,
and
nice.
then and then I had the urn signed,
That's nice.
the Thank You Taker one from when he wrestled Roman at 17. Yeah, they're all back here in
That's
that
amazing.
little in
I'm,
that glass box. But I mean, it was an honor, and we took the second picture where I was so scared, but I remember going, "Hey Taker, can we do a face to face picture?" And he was really tall. Like I'm not that big, so he's
I know,
6'10",
huge.
and he's like looking down, and he kind of like gives me like the Taker look, and I'm like, "Oh, this is on." So he crouches down. He had to crouch in the picture because he was so tall.
Mhm.
So he had to kind of like go like this and look at me. And I remember like I had to look up at him like that and go, okay, I actually got to look at him because like I'm not looking this way in the picture. So I had to look right at him. And I remember I was holding the title. And I'm like, just think about it, you're only gonna be able to do this once. And I looked at him and they snapped the picture. And then he went like that to me. And I was like, so went like that. And I shook his hand and I told him it was an absolute honor. And I never forgot that day because I was going through a lot of stuff at that time too, mentally and whatever. And that day kind of numbed it. And especially, I didn't think he was going to make it because it was 2 days after that Goldberg match.
Oh
So
my God, really?
it was 2 days after because he originally months before had that scheduled, that Niagara Falls Comic Con appearance scheduled. But then they announced Goldberg and Taker for Super Showdown, which is going to be 2 days before he was supposed to be in Niagara. So he's all the way on the other side of the world. And then he's got to travel all the way back within 2 days to come to Niagara to do this signing. On top of that, he got dropped on his neck by Goldberg off that jackhammer, which I thought he broke his neck. And I remember when I was sitting watching that match and I saw the jackhammer, I went, that's it. I'm not meeting him. He just broke his neck.
Oh my God.
And then when he got back up and I went, I really hope he's not that injured because I really want to meet him and I really want to meet him. And then he didn't cancel. I thought he was going to end up canceling and he didn't. And then he still showed up. And that's the professional he is.
I was just going to say, it's just a testament.
And he even said like after that match with Goldberg that his back was jacked up.
Mm-hmm.
And he still showed up halfway across the world, came to Canada and didn't let anybody down. And was still there. And I was really praying to myself that no one was going to mention that Goldberg match to him.
Oh
because there's going to be some fan who's going to be like, oh, yeah, man, that Goldberg match, yeah, it sucked. It's like you're going to get fans like that. And I wouldn't, because I'm not like that. He's had how many bad matches compared to good? We can do the math, even though I'm not very good at it, but I'm not very good at math. But hey, I can do the math for Taker. So,
yeah.
It's pretty common knowledge. So I remember I was so nervous. I didn't think he was going to make it. And then he ended up going and I was so happy. And I remember like, I went up to my mom after that and I'm like, did I just meet Undertaker? It doesn't feel real.
It doesn't.
And then it didn't feel real. Like I walked out of the booth where we were doing the photo op and I looked down at my stuff that I got signed and I went, oh, that just happened. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's off the bucket list. I said to myself before, I said, that's the one guy I'm never going to meet. I'm going to meet everyone else, but I ain't going to meet Taker. It's going to be the one guy. And out of all of them, that's the one guy I met. So I've met the three people that I wanted to meet, and I still have 3 more on my list that I got to meet. But I got 3 of them down. So I'm halfway there.
Who's the other 3?
Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Ric Flair.
Oh, it's a good 3.
Those are my other 3. So because I've met Taker, I've met Kurt, I've met Van Dam, I've met Mysterio. So it's like I have those guys down, but I'd like to get Kane too. Kane's another one that I would really like to meet. But I would say Michaels, Bret, and Flair would be the 3, just because of their contributions to the business and their legacies. It'd be nice to have a picture and an autograph, a personalized one, because I like them personalized and put it up on my wall. But the most meaningful autograph I have besides the Taker one, and you can probably see it a little bit in the background, is the Mean Gene Okerlund one.
Oh, yeah.
Because I met him in Niagara in 2017 when I was going through a really rough patch. And my dad took me up there to Niagara. So we went up there. That's where I met Sting. Sting was up there too. So I met Sting, but I met Mean Gene. And he passed away, unfortunately, about 1.5 years after I met him. But I'm really honored that I had the chance to do that. So that's a very sentimental autograph because he personalized it to me. if I try to get as much of them personalized as I can because it means something to me.
Yeah.
These experiences mean something to me. I'm not one of those people that's gonna get a whole bunch of autographs and then just sell them.
Mm.
That's not who I am. So even like when I met Rob Van Dam, which I talk about in what I'm working on in various projects, I have the Rob Van Dam story in there, and he signed me almost 10 things personalized, and never forgot it, man. Great experience.
That's great. Good thing that you brought up about meeting Undertaker, because I know that's one thing I wanted to ask you because of your profile photo.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, yeah, that one garners some attention.
yeah, and I totally know what you went through because when you're going up to see him, you don't know what you're gonna say,
Yeah,
and then it's done. You're just going through the motions, and then afterwards you feel like, did it actually happen? And
it
it's
was an adrenaline rush.
It is. It is an adrenaline rush, especially when you see him like waiting to take the photo, and you're like, is like it's coming closer and closer to your time to get up there. And
Anticipation.
yeah,
It was like a high of happiness.
yeah. Don't get
That's what I compare it to.
tongue tied. Don't say anything stupid.
Exactly. It's almost like don't don't state the obvious. And the one thing I try to do is not ask questions that have already been asked a million times.
Mhm.
It's like if I ever meet Brett, I'm not going to mention the screw job because he's already answered it a million times. With Ric Flair, I'm not going to mention the Four Horsemen because he's already been asked it a million times. Sean with the screw job in DX, he's been asked that a million times. Like, I want to ask something new, that they probably have very rarely ever been asked. And the first thing I always do, and I think a lot of people forget to do it, but I just do it because I was taught to do it and raised to do it. You shake their hand right when you meet them.
Exactly.
That's what I do because to me it shows it shows how you're going to treat them at the begining because they've done something that a lot of people can't do in this world, and you have to give them respect for that.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys, they get divorced, they end up injured. A lot of them, like I said before, don't have an old age, and they put their bodies on the line for everyone. And I know it sounds cliche, but when you're doing that for 20, 30 years, you deserve respect. And every time I meet someone, the first thing I do is I offer my hand because I want them to hopefully know that, hey, this isn't some, young, dumb Mark who thinks he knows everything, and is going to try to talk down to me, which a lot of people unfortunately do. They deserve the respect. And if you give it to them, then they're going to give it right back to you because without you, they don't have a job, but also without them, you don't have a childhood.
Yeah.
So you have to give them respect, and then they're going to give it to you. And I've never had a bad experience with all the people I've met. I've never had a bad experience.
That's great. And they always say, never meet your heroes, but as I've said on here, whoever said that never met the Undertaker.
I met my two, and I was more than satisfied.
Yeah. And I couldn't be more satisfied with meeting him. I shook his hand. I told him, it's an honor to meet him because I've been a fan for so long. And I remember I told him that in the photo session. I also told him that in the autograph session. And I remember he leaned back and he says, "I'm not that old, am I?" And it's like he was cracking a joke about himself.
Yeah, he always makes fun of his age.
And I remember I was just like so enamored, I didn't laugh. And
yeah, you're just like starstruck.
And then he goes, "Was the joke that bad?"
Oh, he's a human being.
And I know.
Oh, okay.
It's like, and I was like, "Oh, no. It's just like you look great." And he goes, "Well, thank you for that."
Well, yeah, I mean, especially for all the stuff his body's been through, he looks pretty good.
Yeah. And it's just like, you're in such a rush meeting him, and it's like, oh.
That was like when I met Kurt Angle, man. I can't even. Him and Taker, those two. I don't know Rob too, but like Taker and Kurt were those two where I was so young when I met Kurt, but still knew what was going on because I would watch Kurt even before he went to TNA. But at the same time, when I met Taker, it was like, this is the guy that my dad used to take me all the time to the theater just to go watch Taker.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was like all worth it. Like just being a fan of his just paid off so much.
It is.
Because I had that experience for one, it wasn't even one day, it was 3 days because I went up there and then I had so much fun, on the way up and then meeting him and then going back home. Like, and then like I got to anticipate meeting him on the first day, and then I met him on the second day, and then on the third time I'm going back home and I'm looking at all the stuff I had signed with the pictures that I took with him. So it was just like it was like a triple whammy of just happiness, you know, and 3 days of being numb, but in a good way.
Yeah. It's like it's all worth it in the end because you don't know if,
Absolutely.
like you said, it happened 2 or 3 days after the Goldberg match. What if something
Yeah.
else, at any point anything can happen, but you can say you met him.
I'm just happy that I can say that.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy to have his autographs in my room. I'm happy to
And
have taken a picture with him. I'm happy to have told him he was the greatest of all time, because I have never told anyone else that they're the greatest of all time besides him, and I won't.
mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I'm keeping my word on. And it was very sentimental to me. I was actually thinking one day of getting a tattoo of it.
That's of his autograph?
No, of the date that I met him.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's nice.
Of him and Kurt Angle and Rob Van Dam. I was thinking, and like, it's not going to be like eccentric. It's just going to be the dates and the numbers, because those days, like as I talk about in the other projects I'm working on, those days really meant something to me.
Yeah, they do.
So, yeah, really meant something to me, you know, especially for all the stuff I've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's definitely something that I'll never forget. And, I thank those three guys, especially for, doing what they can to make my day better. So
Yeah. And
much respect to all three.
exactly. And sometimes telling them that, it really shows them how much of a fan you really are and how much, their work truly affects people's lives.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. And I think out of the three, I've had the most interactions with Kurt out of the three, which I'm super humbled and grateful for, because I remember I got to talk to Kurt for a little bit, and he knew that I wanted to be a wrestler because I had told him.
When did you meet Kurt Angle?
I met him in 2010.
Okay, so he's like in TNA.
Yes, he was in TNA in the prime of his career. But then after that, I just, I was already a fan of him, but he became my hero after that day, him and Taker. And on Twitter, I asked him questions.
Ooh.
Because sometimes on Twitter, I do that. I will, and I don't want to be like a spam account, or nothing, but if I feel like I have a legitimate chance to get a response, I'll ask a question out of respect. I never go and, bury guys ever, because it's not something I want to do. So I've asked Kurt, like, I've sent out like an open tweet before, and I would say, Kurt, I want to be a wrestler, and do you have any advice for me, if you want to give me any? Because he doesn't have to give me advice, but and he's given me some advice, which I'm really happy about. Like, he told me to be me, and when you're cutting a promo, make sure it's you. Don't let filler get in the way of what you're saying. And he told me, good luck with your career. And for him to say that to me, and then he also, I'll tell you what else he told me off air too, because it's a little bit personal to me in a good way, and it's something that means the world to me. I'll tell you it off air, because I don't think anybody's got to know until maybe later on. No. But it's something really, just something that blew my mind. And Rob Van Dam's the other one, because he signed all that stuff for me, and in the book I'm writing, I get into that story. So, and it's a really interesting one, but he signed all this stuff for me when I met him, and I had one-on-one time with him where we just got to hang out and talk. And
nice.
Yeah, it was so cool, man. And it's a very convoluted story, but I'll get to it all in the book, and I'll tell you off air. But
which will have plenty of time at the end of the podcast to plug your book, your Twitter, and everything else.
Well, what happened was I met him, and he signed like 8 things for me, from what I remember.
Oh my gosh.
Personalized and everything. And he was in the middle of an Impact taping.
When was this?
This was in my hometown, July 19th, 2019. And he was wrestling Willie Mack from Impact, who's also a really underrated worker. And it was in the middle of a taping, and I was supposed to meet Rob, and I didn't get the chance to right away. because I had all this stuff that I wanted to get signed, but I wanted it personalized, and I was trying to not be like a pain in the neck to anybody. So like I didn't want to be a detriment at a taping. Like if it's a live event, it's different, but at a taping, like it's pretty hectic. So one of the people who were the organizers of the show grabbed me from my seat. I was in the second row, and he grabbed me and he's like, "Come here." I'm like, okay. I guess I'm meeting Rob. So I ran out. I had my backpack of all my stuff, just like a kid in high school. Just I had all my stuff in it. I'm running around and I'm looking around for Rob Van Dam. And then I open the door and he's standing right there.
Oh my God.
Just outside. And I'm like, Rob Van Dam, the man that I wanted to meet in Battle Creek all these years ago. And he's here. And I looked and I went, it's Rob Van Dam. All right. Shook his hand. He was really nice, by the way. And so we were talking, and I told him about the story in Battle Creek. I told him the entire thing in detail. And, you know, he didn't have a lot of time, but he spent like 10, 20 minutes with me. It felt that long anyway. And I had all that stuff, and he could have just went, listen, man, I'll sign one or two things for you, but then I got to get going. Mm-hmm. But he stayed the entire time and signed everything. And I even, like, I'm such a mark, and I'm sorry that if this rubs people the wrong way, but I'm such a mark that I had sticky notes of my name on, like, the figures and stuff like that I had. So he would put my name on them.
What's that people get every day, so you want to make sure it's spelled correctly.
So he put my name on everything, and then I asked them, because I had the 1 in 500 figure when he had the WWE and ECW title at the same time from 2006. And I asked him, I said, can you write only ECW and WWE champ ever on it? And he put only ECW and WWE champ on it for me. And he didn't have to do that, you know, and he took his time. Like, it took him a while to sign all that stuff, because he really, like, he didn't just like scribble on it. Like, he really took his time. And for that, I'm always grateful. And I don't know if you can see it back here, but there's an ECW plaque.
I can see a plaque, yeah.
And there's a Mark Henry one up here, and then there's an ECW one down here. And the ECW one has Cactus Jack onto the far right. Uh-huh. Tommy Dreamer's in the middle in red because he was the first one that signed it. And then in green is Rob Van Dam, and he put the date of One Night Stand 2006 on the ECW plaque because I asked. Because that day with the match with John Cena, you know, was crazy. So that was a very vivid memory in my mind. So I asked him, and he said that was his favorite and most important match in WWE. So I was really happy with that. And he had a charm, you know what I mean? Like you meet certain wrestlers, and like they just have that certain aura about them, but they're like real people. Yeah. You know, and it's like, but you're so enamored with meeting them, like how we were with Taker. Oh. And that's how it was with Rob. And he was, man, he took his time. He didn't have to sign anything for me, you know? And then I asked him, I said, Rob, since we're here, do you want to do a video? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. What? I just asked on impulse because I have this brand for when I wrestle. I want to be a heel, and I want to call myself Sports Entertainment Spectator, because sports entertainment is such a heel term in wrestling, because people like to call it professional wrestling. So I'm going to say sports entertainment just to make people mad. Ooh. And I got Rob to do the video, and we stood there, and he's like, hey, dude, this is Sports Entertainment Spectator, you know, with Keegan and RVD. And then he gave me an elbow to the head, like not a real elbow, but like it was like a fake elbow. And I didn't sell it, and I'm so mad because I was laughing because I was in such awe of it. And then I look back at it, and I'm like, I really should have just like fell to the ground and sold that. So next time I meet him, I'm gonna ask him to elbow me again, and I'm gonna fall, and I'm gonna sell it like how Ric Flair did, like the face first bump, and I'm gonna do it.
You screwed up your own video, man.
I didn't sell it because I was happy. I didn't I didn't think it was happening. I thought I was in like some kind of crazy dream. Like I thought I was like in the middle of a sleep, and I was gonna get up. So he went like like that, and I just started laughing, and I'm like, he really should have knocked my teeth out. But I mean, maybe I would look a little more, you know, badass if I didn't have my front teeth, but I don't know. It was definitely a fun day though, because I was, again, another time I was having a flare up with my bipolar disorder, and I was not having a good time around that time, but that day numbed everything. So
that's great.
It was a one of a kind day, that's for sure.
Seriously, you know, no pun intended again.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm pretty good with my puns, so.
I know, I can tell. I can tell.
Well, in the chapters of the book, there's a lot of puns for the interactions with wrestlers that I've had. So like Rob Van Dam's is called a damn 5-star day. And then the Kurt Angle one is a meeting worthy of a gold medal. So I try to be as unique as I can, man. I want to be me. So
that's great.
and if that's weird and eccentric, I'll take it.
Nobody else better to be than yourself.
Absolutely. Those are the greatest people in the world, man. The ones who are themselves.
Is Undertaker in the book? Does he have a pun chapter title?
Yes, he does. And it's The Gong Was Resounding.
That's a good one.
Because the gong was in my head the entire time I was there. And the one thing I've been working on too, since we're talking about Taker again, the door, I want to have this be like an Undertaker exhibit.
Yeah.
And I want to get like, it's hard to see, but I have lights on the top. So when it's dark in here, the lights go purple inside of there with all the Undertaker stuff. So nice. I'll show you and I'll post it on, and for those who are interested, I'll post it on Twitter if you remind me.
Definitely.
And I want to get like a sound machine. So when you open the door, like the gong comes off.
Oh my God.
I think that'd be like because like you can get like little machines, and my stepdad knows how to do it because he's a truck driver. So he knows how to do the radios and that. So, I want to see if I can get like some kind of little radio inside there. So every time you open the door, the gong goes off. I think it'd be like the coolest thing ever. Because I'm such a mark, and I'm willing to admit that. But this is my happy place, man. This is my temple, I guess you can call it.
Oh, I know. The whole purpose of the podcast is to get people a glimpse into my collecting, and to hopefully try to get like. I'm on a mission to get like all the Undertaker figures ever made.
That's what I was gonna do with him and Kurt Angle.
Yeah, because
those two.
It's something that means something to me. Ever since I was a fan of his, I only collected Undertaker. I only collected other wrestlers if they came with Undertaker in a pack, or if I needed people for Undertaker to beat in my figure fed.
Well, I know you're running the interview, but besides your 2 signed items from the Deadman, what is your favorite Undertaker piece of memorabilia that you have?
That was going to be my question to you. And
I guess I read your mind.
You did. I don't know because there's so much.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm going to go the sentimental route and say Superstars Series 7. Undertaker.
Oh, nice.
Because that was the first Undertaker figure I ever got. It's the one that kicked off the collection. And, it's like the first time they molded him to look like him in the bone-crunching action style. And it's just that figure holds like so much nostalgia to me.
That's awesome, and I love the old Jack Specific Taker figures.
Yeah.
I have the Deluxe Aggression early series before they were like the pre-production one.
Okay.
And it's definitely a good figure. And but I have so much I have so much Undertaker stuff too that it's like to name my favorite piece of Undertaker memorabilia that's not signed. I don't know. That's tough. I would have to say, because it's not signed, I would say the picture I have with him. Okay. But if we're going the figure route, I would have to say his first ever Elite is the American Badass, which I have. And
I think
his first ever one. I think it was Elite 18, I want to say, or 19. It was one of the two. And I have that, and I got it as a grad gift last year.
Nice.
So I finally got it. I wish I would have got it in like 2012 when it was like $20, but but I got my mom, because one person in France had that figure, and I found it, and that's what I wanted for my grad gift. But he also had the Legend 6 Ultimate Warrior from WrestleMania 6. I think it's from the Legend 6 series, but I know it's from WrestleMania 6. And he had both men on card in the package. And I looked at my mom and said, if you're getting me a grad gift, this is what I'm getting. And I finally got that American Badass Taker. I finally did it. So that's probably my favorite figure out of the bunch, but they're all my favorite. Like, I have so many Takers that it never grows old getting anything a Taker. Like, even my mom too, she's like, do you ever get sick of collecting Undertaker stuff? And I'm like, no. And then in Christmas in 2018, she bought me an Undertaker sweater off WWE Shop.
Nice.
too. And yeah. Well, here's another Undertaker one right here. Since it's here, it's the Undertaker is Kane
Oh yeah,
side exclusive, and I thought that was a pretty underrated figure. But
it is because
I love the packaging. Packaging's great.
yeah, and also that not exactly what that one's based off because that one's based off that tag match.
Yes.
But the picture on the side, the one with him taking off the mask on Raw to grab Vince.
Yeah, because you want a shot title, man.
That's
Vince wanted to screw over Taker. You don't do that. You don't screw over Taker.
That's the moment that's one of the second moments I remember because I know my first moment was him with Austin, but then he was off TV for a while. And
Yeah, and that's fine because he got injured. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, oh, when's he coming back? When's he coming back? Because I want to show my parents. I want to show my parents the Undertaker, and he's not here. And then all of a sudden, he shows up as Kane, and I was like, perfect time to show them him coming back in such like a remarkable fashion. Is like I saw him the first time. This time he takes off the mask and he grabs McMahon, and the lights go out, and you can still hear his voice afterwards. It's like perfect.
I think the Taker and Kane program is my favorite program in wrestling history.
It
It's
is.
just it's the greatest long-term program, I believe.
25
And
years.
it's just so well done.
It is. 25 years, and if they came back tomorrow, people would still be enamored by it.
Oh, if they teamed again, I would still mark out. I don't care what year it is. I know people are like, oh, they're too old, they need to retire, but if they're gonna sell out at an arena or a stadium and I can go, I'm gonna be there.
Me too. I love
So, that's all that matters to me is sentimental value for Taker now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's all you need. That's all you need. It's like he can still sell out an arena because people will still buy tickets to see him. And the same people that are complaining that he's coming back to fight will be the same people lining up to get tickets to see him.
Well, to me, they're the same people that are at the arena cheering for him and giving him the loudest ovation of the night when he comes out. So it's like, when's the crowd ever dead when Taker shows up? Never. So, I think people just say that because they look at his age and his injuries and go, okay, he can't go anymore until he actually does wrestle. And then you're like, oh, okay, he can still go. Well, look, and people have said like since the streak broke that he needed to retire. I don't think that was the case because I don't think the match with Shane was as bad as people thought or made it out to be. I don't think it was. The match with Roman was what it was, but you got to also remember his hip was in a really bad spot. So, and I don't think Roman, and I have nothing but respect for Roman Reigns, but I don't think Roman was at the point in his career that he could carry a match like that at that point yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not his fault. And then with Triple H the year later at Super Showdown, which wasn't awful either, even though a lot of people think it was. I don't think it was that bad. But,
No, I liked it. I enjoyed the Super Showdown match. I wish Undertaker would have won. But
I mean, but what do you expect when you have two guys, one's 53 and one's, south of 40, that they're going to have a 5-star clinic? That's not the goal. It's like they're not going to have the matches that they had in 2012 because they're, almost 10 years older at that point. So it's like, I think a lot of people have to I don't want to say just lower their expectations, but they're not going to go out and have a New Japan match. They're not going to go out and have an Omega and Okada match when they're 53. If you throw Okada and Omega out there at 53, they're not going to have the match that they had at Dominion 3 years ago. It's just a fact, So that's why I always had an issue with people saying that Taker needed to retire, because then when he came back and teamed with Roman at Extreme Rules, he looked fantastic.
One of my favorite matches.
Yeah, and he never lost a step. No. And then he did that great Boneyard match with AJ, which was better than anybody thought it was going to be. So I don't think it's a case that he needed to retire. I think it was a case that he needed other opponents.
Yeah,
that's what I think it was. Like if Taker and AJ could have a match tomorrow, and I still think they would get by. I really do. Yeah. So, it's just a matter of who he faced.
Yeah, and I still had him face Elias instead of Goldberg. Because it doesn't matter, because at least Elias is younger than Goldberg.
The match wasn't going too bad until Goldberg speared the ring post. It was actually going okay until he speared the ring post, and then it just completely crumbled.
It was going okay.
Yeah, he hit the 2 spears, and then he hit the rolling knee bar, and I was like, this might not be too bad.
Yeah.
Because my expectations weren't high for it,
mm-hmm.
but at the same time, the lead up was good. Like I thought Goldberg did like a really good promo on SmackDown, and then Taker interrupted him, and I was like, this has got a big fight feel that WWE's missing right now. But then they did that match, and it wasn't great, but it happens. And even Undertaker said that. He's like, man, it's an accident. Things happen, and we were disappointed about it. And not every match is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a bad match every once in a while.
It does. And if only would have stayed down after that first tombstone, it probably would have looked back better.
It would have been okay, yeah. But the thing is, I think Goldberg was trying to just get it done, but like have people remember it at the same time. And unfortunately, they remember it for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. But at least, you know what, though, man, you can't really blame anybody. It's like when I see people like tarnishing Goldberg for that match and Taker, it's like, you go out there and do it. You go out there and do that and do a match, and see how far you get. It's like you gotta have a level of respect for guys, even if they're in their 50s and they're still going out there and they're not what they were 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Doesn't matter. They're still going out there and they have a risk for injury. Mm-hmm. So you gotta give them respect. And I did, even though the match wasn't good and they'll both admit it. Still, they went out there and tried to do what they could.
Yeah,
all that matters in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like it's lost on a lot of people. They expect so much, and
you're not gonna get a Taker match from 2007 and 2019.
Yeah, like they compare them to other wrestlers and say how they could have done better.
Well, I'll give you an example, and I'm not gonna mention who said it. I'll tell you off air, but this person said that Sonata in New Japan, who is a great worker, he's a great worker, but they said that Sonata is a better worker than The Undertaker. And I question that because how are you going to compare a guy that's 5'8" and 190 pounds to a guy that's 6'10" and 300?
Yeah,
when their styles are two totally different. That's like comparing Shawn Michaels to Brock Lesnar. You can't, because there's such different styles. Like Sonata's a strong style performer, whereas Taker's a technical striker. It's like you can't compare. That's like, I don't know. That's like comparing Vader to Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, it's always a pet peeve of mine in the.
It's the comparisons, and it's like, okay, like you're entitled to think what you think, but at the same time, you have to think logically and go, okay, Sonata and The Undertaker. Look at their styles, look at their opponents, look at their different facets of how they wrestle. One is a pure athletic-based performer, and the other one's a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to compare. You really can't. As someone who's been watching wrestling my entire life, I know that because I've seen both of them wrestle in their greatest matches. Mm-hmm. And it's two totally different things.
It is, and that's lost on a lot of people. They just feel like they can compare them, and then...
Like, it's okay to compare, but at the same time, too, you have to be able to, if you want to debate people on it, you have to back up your claim.
Exactly. And,
And that's why, too, like, I'm wrong sometimes, too. Like, there's sometimes on Twitter, like, I'll post a match that I liked or something, and some people might not like it, and it is what it is.
That's what it is. Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah, like an opinion's an opinion, man. It doesn't really matter in the end.
It doesn't.
So that's and that's the thing. It's like, I think The Undertaker is the greatest of all time. And someone might come up to me and go, no, I disagree with you. Ric Flair's the greatest of all time. Fair enough. That's a logical argument. You have your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's logical because Ric Flair is one of the all-time greats. So I get that. But at the same time, it's like I'm okay with having to agree to disagree, because we're not all gonna have the same opinions, and that's the beauty of us, is we're not all gonna agree on the same thing. Okay, because if we all did, it'd be a pretty boring world. I think if we all agreed, if you and I agreed with everyone in the world, Undertaker would be main eventing every WrestleMania until the end of time.
Which would
so I mean, but yeah, he's definitely, Taker is for sure not just the greatest big man, but I think he's one of the greatest storytellers. He's for sure the greatest persona in this business. And you could throw him in any era, and he's going to be on top in his prime. Mm-hmm. So, Taker, it's a wrap.
And you mentioned earlier about you liking that Jeff Hardy Undertaker match. Do you have that pack that they?
Do I have what?
That battle pack, the basic pack.
You mean this one?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it. It's the only championship showdown one I have so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was the first one I bought, and I saved up for it because I usually only buy elites in like first time in the line figures, but this one I had to have because one, the packaging's great.
It is.
Second, it's one of my favorite matches ever. And third, I love the American Badass Undertaker, even though a lot of people don't. And I love that gimmick. And I thought the storytelling in that match was impeccable. And I loved at the end how they had the Undertaker have respect for Jeff Hardy at the end because Jeff Hardy wouldn't stay down, and just thought it was perfect.
It was perfect, and I don't know. It's just something about that match. It's something that sticks with you because I can vividly remember that. You know, him Undertaker going up the ramp and then Jeff Hardy yelling at him from the microphone, and Undertaker has to come all the way back down.
Yeah, and he's going, "I'm still standing."
Yeah.
Yeah, and JR was great in that match too with his call, like, "Come on, kid, make yourself famous." And then he was worried Undertaker was just going to brutalize him after the match. Taker grabbed him like he was about to, end him, and then just raised his hand in victory. And yeah, it was perfect, man. Perfect match. Should have been on pay-per-view, but hey, they gave us a match on free TV, so I ain't complaining.
And it made Jeff a single star.
Yeah, for sure. And that match made him. It really did.
Yeah, it really broke the mold that people were used to seeing of him.
Yeah, it was just such a well-structured match. I don't know who their agent was for that match. I'm assuming maybe Pat Patterson might be the agent, but it was so well thought out.
It was. And when I mentioned about that is because it just seems like during Undertaker's title reigns, it's always about making like new stars.
Yes,
and
every time.
over younger people. Like his first title, not what the first one with Hogan, but in '97 he has matches with Farouk and Vader.
Yep.
And he has it with Steve Austin, who was just getting the gimmick with the Stone Cold, getting off the feet, and then with Bret Hart, and then he goes on to like with Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton and CM Punk later on, and Batista and Edge. It just seems like
every time, man. And I think it would have happened again if Jeff Hardy would have stayed in 2010. I think that's who he would have dropped the title to. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's just like the blueprint for Undertaker's title reigns. It's all about giving him people that wouldn't have title opportunities in the past. You give Undertaker the title, and he gives the opportunities to the other people that's coming up.
It's a great analogy, and a lot of people don't think about that, but really, now that you pointed it out, he has made so many guys at a main event as permanent main eventers.
Yeah, and
even Edge to an extent.
Yeah, and he's giving when he's the world heavyweight champion again, he's giving it to Chris Jericho and Big Show. That were already looked over in the past. They have an opportunity now.
Yeah, he's just and the thing is a lot of people worry that Taker won too much throughout his entire career. But like I said before, even with the Randy Orton stuff, it's like it doesn't matter who wins in the end, because when you face Taker, you usually get over, unless if you're DDP in the stalker angle. But that angle was doomed to start with. So, but other than that, everyone gets put over with Taker.
Yeah, and there's matches I think he should have won that he lost, like some of the Lesnar matches he should have won. I think
he should have beat him for sure at WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, definitely.
Like we said before, yeah. But one match I really did like that people don't talk about is Taker and Ric Flair at WrestleMania 18.
Yes.
A lot of people don't talk about that one, and I don't know why, because I thought it was one of his better WrestleMania matches.
Yeah, and one of Flair's favorite and one of Taker's favorite.
It's just and Rick was like 53, man, in that match, and he still pulled off one great match.
Yeah, and they said that Flair was in a bad position.
Yes.
He was
mentally, his confidence was really low, and I think that match helped him out a little bit.
Yeah.
And Rick even said in his Hall of Fame speech that he thought it was a good match, and he was. I actually think that was the best match on the card. And a lot of people will say Rock and Hogan because of the crowd, but if you look from a pure in-ring perspective, I really think in a pure storytelling perspective, I think Taker and Rick was the best match on the card.
Me too.
Really was.
Yeah, what gets lost on Rock and Hogan is the crowd.
Yes, I agree. And trust me, that match is so watchable because of the crowd. But I like Taker and Flair because it was like a match from the 70s. Like it was like one of those like throwback old school stories where, you know, the older guy he's getting picked on, but he still can stand up for himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I liked. It was personal and they used the blood perfect. Like Rick was great at blading, you know, and which he did in that match too. And Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross were on point for that match too. Like their calls were perfect. Taker did such a good job too of just being the heel. And Taker, we usually don't talk about Taker being a heel all that often, but he was his 02 late 01 mid 02 heel run was really underrated.
Yeah.
So underrated, man. He had some really good matches, and that Flair one was a prime example.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you love the Badass era. I love the Badass era. I think it's
I did.
really underrated.
Yeah, he had some great matches. Like he had the feud with Brock in 02, which they had that cell match at No Mercy. And then him and Kurt they had a really good match on SmackDown in 03 where Brock interfered and took them both out. But match was like a 4.5-star pay-per-view match on SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it was very poetic that Kane buried him, and that's what brought back the Deadman at WrestleMania 20. So it was just great storytelling throughout the entire time.
Hated having McMahon win that match like that.
They could have just had Taker and Kane buried alive and had Kane beat him clean. That's what I would have done personally, but
oh well,
I would have done that. But
can't
hey,
change the past.
hey, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, can't change the past no matter how much you want to.
If you've ever seen a guy by the name of Adam Blampied in his bookings, he's pretty good at changing the past. He's used to be on What Culture on their show for wrestling, and he books events from the past for WWE, like how WWE should have booked the Invasion, how they should have booked Goldberg in general, you know, and stuff like that. Like he's got some really good ones.
Yeah, I always think about that sometimes. Like, what would I have done different? Like
that's what I think about. Yeah, I think about that stuff all the time, like the Invasion and stuff. Okay, how would I have done that? Taker and Sting at Mania 18, probably, but. I would have had Taker return to the Deadman gimmick a little bit earlier just for that Sting feud, and then he could go back to being American Badass, but because I really wanted that Taker and Sting match.
Yeah, I know a lot of people did.
It's a shame it never happened, but I guess it's better that it didn't happen now than it would happen, you know, in this day. So I think we got to leave it in our minds.
Yeah, I think they missed the mark in 2015.
I said that match should have been the main event of WrestleMania 31. I would have had it have been Sting's only match in the WWE.
Yeah.
Sting and Taker. Taker has, in my world, Taker would have the streak. Sting would come in the night after WrestleMania 30 and challenge him for next year's WrestleMania, have a 1-year build, and then Taker Sting WrestleMania 31. Taker wins. It's Sting's last match. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, they can also like they did with the Rock and Cena, have that year-long build.
Yeah.
Have Undertaker and Sting tag at Survivor Series of 14.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Yeah, that'd be so cool. Like Taker and Sting against who? Like the Wyatts or the Authority or something.
Yeah.
And
have exactly Sting came in against Triple H, so have it against the Authority.
Yes, Taker and Sting against the Authority, like who? Like Rollins and Triple H.
Yeah.
And have Undertaker and Sting win. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Have Undertaker and Sting win, and then have them just like creating havoc for Triple H, and then Triple H then finally has enough of it, and then he says he books them at WrestleMania, and one of them has to leave.
Hey, well, I got a question for you too. Speaking of Undertaker, have you ever watched any of Terry Funk's work?
I haven't.
Okay, well, Terry Funk was really good. He was really good back in the 80s. He was a really good brawler. He was a really good old school storyteller. And one match that I wish Undertaker would have had was against Terry Funk. So if you ever get a chance, watch Terry Funk versus Ric Flair from Clash of the Champions.
Okay.
I think it's 1989.
Okay.
It's a 5-star match. And you will see how, because Terry Funk's essentially a cowboy, like a Southern cowboy, but he's like a rebel. And I think he would have been so good against Taker. It would have been a great story because Taker would have beat him until he couldn't like move, but he wouldn't quit until he was about to die, and then eventually Taker would pick him up and tombstone him. But the old gunfighter would not quit. it would have been a great story. So if you ever see a Terry Funk match, watch the one with Flair from Clash of the Champions because it's a classic. It's an I Quit match too, if you're wondering.
Oh, okay. I definitely would have to check that out.
Yeah, it's on the WWE Network.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out if you ever want to. Because like I watch a lot of stuff from the territories and that,
Okay.
the older stuff, because it's actually very underappreciated work, and I think you would like Terry Funk. If you like Undertaker, you'll like Terry Funk.
Okay, great. So that is a feud that I didn't really think about happening. Undertaker and Terry Funk.
I think it could have happened in 1999 after Taker beat him up in the cell after he threw McFoley off, and Funk came out and Undertaker started beating him up. I would have set that up for WrestleMania 15.
Really?
Yeah, instead of the Big Boss Man, I would have done Funk and Taker
I would have done Shane McMahon and Taker.
at 19
At
because of the minute, or not 19. Sorry, at 15.
15.
Yeah, because of the Ministry feud. Yeah, that could have worked too instead of 32.
Yeah, because Shane's the one Undertaker hands the papers to. He's the one that,
Higher power.
yeah. So
And then the storyline was such a bust in the end.
I know it was, but
It should have been Jake Roberts. I think Jake Roberts should have been the higher power.
Ooh.
I really do.
If he was sober enough at that time.
Yeah. Like I think he still could have been, but he probably wouldn't have wrestled. Like because he hates Austin and he hates Taker for running him out of WWE at WrestleMania. Was it 8 that he fought? Yeah, it was WrestleMania 8. Because he hates Austin because Austin made his catchphrase off of him. That was Adam Blomqvist's idea, so I got to credit him for that. The guy who does the fantasy bookings, but I just thought it was great to bring up.
Yeah. But I always thought that Shane been better as an Undertaker opponent in 15 instead of Boss Man. Because why would Vince give Undertaker Boss Man? You know, give him his sons. Show what his son can do to him.
Yeah. It would have been good in 1999. You've seen that.
Yeah, because it's almost like Undertaker's coming for Vince. Well, if you want to get through me, you have to get through my son. So
it's good storytelling.
Yeah, it is, and it's like, you know, missed opportunities. But what can you do?
Absolutely, man. Sometimes things in the past we can't change.
Exactly.
But at least we got it better late than never. 32.
And it's a good match.
Yeah, underappreciated.
It is underappreciated. I think they do a lot of good storytelling, a lot of good spots. May have went a little too long than what people wanted, but I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And you mentioned you have his Hasbro signed, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I can go get it. I can bring it over. I'll show it. I'll show it to the camera. Yeah, I have it right here. His first ever Hasbro. And it's in French, too.
Oh, nice. I love it.
Yeah, in a display box. I got it off Ringside Collectibles because this thing is old. This thing's like 10 years older than I am. So I had to keep it precious because it's Taker's first figure.
Yeah.
So you gotta, yeah.
I mentioned that because that's one of the items I always am looking for in my collection. The Hasbro, his first figure, and also the red card figure, because you know those are his first two action figures. I feel like my collection definitely needs that. And I brought that up because is there something that you feel you want in your collection for the Undertaker?
Man, I would say, and I know it's a long shot, but I would like to have a piece of ring-worn gear, whether it's a glove or, or his leather pants or something to put in a shadow box or something. I think that's the piece that's missing. So if Taker ever had a glove that he didn't use anymore and signed it and handed it over here, that's what I would want. So, but if we're talking about in terms of figures, you know what? I'm gonna say one that they haven't made yet, and that's WrestleMania 14.
Yes.
In a Mattel version. That's the one I want. But if I had to say one for Jack specific, I would say the Brothers of Destruction 2-pack. I don't have that, so that's the one I would need.
Yes.
The deluxe one.
Yeah.
That's the one I would need. So for Mattel, if you're listening, please make a WrestleMania 14 Taker. I want it so bad.
We do. We need that. That's one of his eras they never really touched in figures. And I
would also like a 2004 with the bandana and the jacket from when he came out after WrestleMania 20. That's another one I would like.
Yeah, and and I would love like 2007, like the kick pad
Yeah,
and everything.
WrestleMania 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great too.
There's so many more they could touch, but definitely WrestleMania 14 with the coat and oh yeah, the classic 2-pack. Oh my God.
Yeah, I want that pack so bad, and I saw the prices for it, and I went, yeah, I better make it in order to buy that pack.
Oh, I know. It's the
So it's worth quite a
prices,
bit.
the prices have shot up extremely on those things.
You know what I do have though, and I do have this of the Undertaker. And before I forget to show you, before
Can't wait. Oh, I love it.
Undertaker and Shawn WrestleMania 25 Heaven and Hell ringside exclusive. Yeah, I love that pack, man, because it's probably the best match I've ever seen. So I had to have that, but I need the defining moment, Shawn, from that Mania from 25. I don't have it, so
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna have to get that too. Wow, I'm a big figure collector. I keep them all in the package.
Me too. Me too.
I don't open them. I started that about in 2016. I started I had collected figures before, but I always opened them, and then I thought about the value and went, I'm just gonna keep in the package. And the first figure I started with was the Undertaker.
Ooh, which one?
First one. It was the Then, Now, and Forever basic one.
Oh, okay, nice. They
With his gray gloves from like '93.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one, and I also had Sting too from Elite 39.
Nice. It's like it's like a hybrid. It's like supposed to be like 93 Taker, but it can also double like WrestleMania 13 Taker when he came out.
Either that or like the 94 Rumble.
Yeah.
When he first it's like a hybrid, yeah. But I miss that gear. I really like that gear.
I love the gear. I don't love the opponents he fought during the time.
No, I wish he would have feuded with Shawn or something.
Yeah.
But it's so much Brett. I would have booked him and Brett for WrestleMania 9 and 10 2 years in a row, but
yeah, I would have.
That's what I would have done. But instead of Yokozuna, I would have done Taker and Brett.
Yeah. And I probably would have given Undertaker Yokozuna at 10. I probably would have given him Brett at 9.
Taker and Brett at 9 would have been fantastic. So the Giant Gonzalez, but hey, that's for another episode.
Please. I can't believe it. But yeah, just like me, I used to open up my figures when I was a kid. And then all through Jax, I opened it up. And then when Mattel came out with the Elites, I was like, okay, I'm keeping this one in the package.
Yeah, that was me. I started to not open them. If I would have never opened every figure I had, I would have probably had 3 rooms right now of figures, and you wouldn't even be able to walk because I had so many from Jax and stuff like that. Because when we would go to the States, like for my sister's stuff, like my mom would take me to KB Toys, which they don't have in Canada. But we would go to KB Toys, Meijer, and Target. Those would be the 3, and we would just unload on wrestling stuff. I actually, in the book, I talk about getting that TNA Sting figure over there.
Nice. I love KB.
Yeah, it was at Meijer that I got the Sting one. It was the TNA Sting where he had the face paint in the form of a mask that you could wear, and it came with the figure in the package.
Ooh.
And that was the one I got, and I played with that figure so much in my matches that I broke it into literal chunks. I wish I would have kept it in the package though, looking back at it, but
well,
you win some, you lose some, like I said.
Exactly. But every week
I met him, so I guess I win.
Yeah. Every week I think I talk about a story about KB Toys on the pod, just because it's just going in there and seeing like the pegs and racks full of wrestling figures.
Yeah, I bought a whole bunch of stuff from there. My mom spoiled me there. She bought me like a TNA Kevin Nash there once. She bought me a TNA Kurt Angle in the package, and I took it out. And like I'm cringing thinking about it now. It just makes me so mad. And then she bought me like a whole like Raw pack and ECW pack. I think it had like Edge in it and maybe Elijah Burke. I think maybe. Yeah, like there's like a whole bunch of stuff, and I wish I would have never opened it as a kid. But as a kid, you don't know.
I know, and you're making me miss these days even more.
It's nostalgic. Like I still have like Christmas pictures and stuff that I have where like I'm opening up like a Ruthless Aggression like MVP figure, like a Bobby Lashley, and it's like man, why did I open those? Like, I should have kept them.
I love the nostalgia it brings.
Yeah, I got a Rey Mysterio standee one year, like one of those big like cardboard standees.
Oh, nice.
That like you can get off WWE Shop, and they just got me one of those. And I'm like every year it was a tradition. I got wrestling shirts, so I would get like Undertaker shirts, Edge shirts, and Triple H shirts, and I was just I used to cut my sleeves in school like I was Jeff Hardy. I used to have like long sleeve shirts, and I used to cut them like this and pretend I was Jeff Hardy, and then my mom would get mad at me because I cut the sleeves.
Hey, it's what us wrestling fans do.
Because I was a Jeff Hardy mark too as a kid. So I mean, I just tried to be a wrestler. Like I used to do the 5-star frog splash off my desk in my chair at school.
Is that a story for another day, or do you?
Oh, I can elaborate on some of it. Like we used to, so in grade school, a lot of us liked wrestling. I was the only one that never grew out of it. I never grew out of wrestling. Everyone else did but me. So this is when the Nexus was red hot.
Wow.
And we used to do the Nexus against WWE, where there would be a team of guys over here that were WWE and then Nexus at our school. And the teachers used to let us fight. Like they used to let us like punch each other and beat the heck out of each other. I don't know why they did, but they did. Because we were kids. I guess they just kind of gave up on us. Wow. And we started like beating each other up, and then
says a lot about the teachers.
Pretty much. And then I used to go up to my chair when we were in class and the teachers would try to be teaching. I'd go to my desk or my chair, whatever I could get to, and I'd go and then whoosh, jump off the top. And we were crazy, man.
Oh my God.
We were crazy. And then one kid had a trampoline, and we used to beat each other up on that too after school. So we beat each other up at school, and then after school we would go when I was in grade 4, maybe grade 5, and the kids who bullied me, that's where I would get my revenge.
Who listens?
I'd actually stiff them, and then I'd feel bad after. But like I don't know, it is what it is. Like I remember like one kid I really didn't like, and I talk about this in what I'm doing in the book, and he showed up one day and he was on the trampoline, and I tried to stiff him, and I think I got away with it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, wrestling's helped me, man. Ruthless aggression.
And as long as you can get away with it, that's all that matters, right?
I was in grade 4, so like, hey, what are they gonna do? Slap me on the wrist, tell me no again? And like it'd be different now because I'm older, but grade 4, I think people got better things to do than worry about, a grade 4 kid getting mad at another one.
And who listens to that? Don't try this stuff at home stuff anyway.
Oh, I tried it at home. I remember one time I tried a swanton bomb on the trampoline and landed right on top of my head.
Oh my God.
Everyone thought I broke my neck. I remember I was like, no, I'm good, guys. I still won't do a backflip. I still can't do a backflip. Like my sister has a diving board, and I still can't do a backflip. I can't do it. I can do a swanton bomb, but I can't do a backflip for my life.
It's okay. You probably won't need it.
I don't want it. I don't want to use it anyway. I want to be a mat beast like Brett and Kurt.
So you want to be like a submission wrestler?
Yeah, technician and striker.
Okay.
Like incorporate the kicks of Rob Van Dam, but like be technical like Brett and Kurt.
Nice.
So yeah, just like a hybrid, like a bit different. Like I'm not gonna be a guy that you're gonna see do a Phoenix Splash off the top rope. I'm not gonna be the Young Bucks. Being able to do their stuff because that's for them. Like you have to be a great athlete to do that. And I'm not capable of doing that. And even if I could do it, I wouldn't be able to do it half as good as they can. Mm-hmm. So there's no point in me doing it. So, and plus I'd rather be technical anyway. So,
and it's all about the story. So
exactly. Like, like there's a lot of guys I like right now that are technical. Like Zack Sabre Jr. is one guy that I really like watching from New Japan. He's a great technician. But I would say if I had to emulate one person, it'd have to be Kurt. Or Brett, one of the two. Just because their in-ring style and their psychology, their pacing was great. They didn't go too fast, but not too slow. Their storytelling was impeccable. So that's the kind of style I would want to do. Because I think sometimes in matches today, people do too much too soon.
Yeah.
And then there's not if you have to go 30 minutes, you burn out of your stuff in 10 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes drag because you've already burned through everything. And then you compensate that last 20 minutes by doing spot after spot after spot after spot. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you gotta space them out a little bit.
Mhm.
That's why you usually see a lot of guys start their matches slow and then they build it towards the end.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 20 is a perfect example. One of my favorite matches ever. The match was so good.
I still remember the boot spot.
Such a creative spot. It was such a creative spot when you think about it.
I could just imagine him trying to pull that off for Taker. Oh,
I don't know if that'd work. Taker would just, when he would roll, Taker would just grab him by the neck and pick him back up like that.
you know, but just the imagery of him trying to unlace his boot in front of Undertaker and everything.
It'd be so funny.
Yeah.
I could see like Eddie like running out of the ring and Taker having to try and chase him around.
Yeah.
I could see that, like cat and mouse.
Yeah. Undertaker just stepping on his foot and him trying to unlace it.
I could see it.
So many opportunities missed. It really is.
I know we talked about it earlier, but man, Taker and Guerrero, that was a 5-star match waiting to happen.
It was. And it's, well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we didn't touch on when I'm talking about The Undertaker, since this is an Undertaker-centered podcast. Trying to think anything
I
else.
think we've covered quite a bit.
We did. We
got the job done.
Yeah, everything from rewriting some history to favorite collectibles and stuff we hope to have in our collections.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a shame.
It was a lot of fun to go back memory lane.
It is. And it's a shame he doesn't sell his memorabilia more, but I know he just gives that to Vince and WWE for them to just...
I want him to release a book badly.
I do want him to release a book. I
need a Taker biography badly.
Like everything, like all the backstage stories he can tell and everything.
Wrestler's Court.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely needed.
It's got to happen, man. I heard that before Rob Van Dam was working on a book, so that's probably what I'll buy next. But if Taker does, I'm saving up and I'm pre-ordering that right away.
Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned like Angle and Hart that you want to emulate. That's two of Undertaker's not only good friends, but people that he's had some of the best matches with.
Greatest opponents yet. SummerSlam 97. What a match. It's like, yeah, there's so many common denominators with Taker and what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's wrestled almost everybody and had a great match with them. So when you think about it, is there really anything he hasn't accomplished besides like not winning any like mid-card titles or anything?
He needed that Intercontinental title so he could become a Grand Slam champion.
Yeah, he never won the IC title or the US title.
Yeah, he was given opportunities, but against.
I mean, he did win the hardcore title though.
So I wish he would have beat Goldust for the IC title, but that darn me.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I wish he would have won the world title a bit more, but
yeah,
he also didn't beat the title because he was already big on his own. But
I think that clouded McMahon's judgment a lot, like him thinking, well, he doesn't need the title, but
pretty much
should have gotten the title more.
It's okay because I'm the Undertaker World Champion. So I don't know. Taker can have this if he wants. I'll drop it and run away, and he can have it. But
you just throw it at him. He can keep it.
Just like, here, man. Here, you want it? Take it.
You're gonna show off your sprinting skills.
Oh yeah, I'm not a fast sprinter at all. I'm not very coordinated. I'm coordinated with like doing like wrestling moves outside on my mat, but I'm not coordinated with running. I ain't agile in that manner. I can't run fast at all.
Oh,
I can run fast for 2 seconds and I'm out of breath, blown up.
Well,
it's funny though because I can go outside and do like 30 front rolls in a row for wrestling and I'm not tired, but then when I run for 2 seconds, I'm tired.
Wow, I
don't get it.
You gotta work on running the ropes.
I run off my fence. I don't got any ropes. I wish I did though. I've only been in a ring twice and it was like heaven when I was in it.
Really?
Yeah, twice. I went in a ring twice. I went once to meet Kurt, which he was in the ring. And then the second time was at the Impact taping the same day I met Rob Van Dam and Tessa Blanchard was in the ring.
Nice.
Yeah, and I met her.
Wow. When you met Rob Van Dam at the Impact taping, is that something you won? Did you win like the opportunity to go to the taping and then meet him?
Well, after the match, they stopped recording the show, and then they said that you can get in the ring for a photo op with Tessa Blanchard, and they were going to bring Tessa Blanchard back out, and we got the opportunity to go in the ring and take a picture with her,
Oh, cool.
which was a fun experience because I walked in the ring and I went, "Oh, this is bouncier than I thought."
This is bouncier than I thought.
It is like it's pretty bouncy. I'm sure it hurts when you fall, but
Oh yeah, probably. You wouldn't think of the
you
ring.
know,
So those Mattel spring rings, they're really true to form. They are bouncy.
I mean, like I have like foam mats that I bought off Amazon that I put in the backyard, and that's what I bump on.
Okay.
So I guess bumping on the ring will be easier because I'm not bumping on the ground.
Uh-huh.
I'm bumping right on the dirt. So, but hey, that's sacrifice too. I can't train right now because of the whole COVID thing. So I guess I got to train myself to some extent.
Well,
I just want to know. I just want to know some of the basics before I start training, so I don't go in there like a complete Neanderthal and not know what I'm doing. You know, I want to be able to know how to run the ropes at least, which I use my fence, and I'm eventually going to go through it, but it's going to be like a big gaping hole in the fence.
God. So
I'm
you
gonna fall through it.
so you this big gaping hole in your fence. I wonder who did it, and just like the outline of you.
I don't know. A big 230-pound frame did it. That's what people are gonna know.
Well, I wish you all the luck in your wrestling career.
Thank you
Sure,
very much.
yeah, you'll do great. It's amazing to have like a passion for that, to do wrestling, and just wish you all the best in it.
Nothing but appreciation because without support, a lot of people won't do it.
Yeah,
So to have backing and support and people who actually want to see you do something, it's the greatest feeling in the world. So I appreciate that and thank you for your kind words.
of course. And now, if do you have anything else to ask me to add to the podcast before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, what's our next episode going to be?
We'll plan it.
Okay, that
We'll
sounds good.
plan it. Well, Keegan, I want to thank you for joining me here at the Collecting Dead Man podcast. Now
Thank
is
you.
the time to plug anything you like. Where can people follow you? Where can people find your book and anything else you would like to get out there in the universe?
Okay, so I am on Twitter, and my tag, I guess you want to call it, is at Keegan RW. So it's Keegan, and then RW is capital. So and then you'll see my first and last name on there. My last name's the entire alphabet, so that's how you're gonna know who I am. And then
I was just thinking, like, how am I going to pronounce this when I like? I'll just
Dimitrijevic.
I'll
That's
just
how you say it in English. In Serbian, it's a lot different, but in English, it's just Dimitrijevic.
Dimitrijevic.
A lot of silent letters when you say it in English.
Yeah.
So that's where they can follow me, and if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter. And then for my book that's coming out that we've talked about, making mental illness tap out, that's going to be coming out as a paperback, hopefully in the next week, I'm hoping. But it's already available on Kindle, which is on Amazon. And there is a sample. So before you ever decide that you want to buy the book, there is a few pages that are free to look at to see if the book is of in your interest. So it's about pretty much everything that I've gone through with my mental illness and my past with bullying at home and at school, and about how I was on the wrong medications, how I actually almost died via actually wanting to take my own life and the medications almost taking my life. So it's and also how professional wrestling has saved my life. And as cliche and nonchalant as that sounds, it's true, but it's a very specific, in-depth analysis of it. So that, again, I hope that's out in the next few days. If it's not, then I'll keep working on getting more out, but the paperbacks hopefully should be available soon. So I tried to make it as affordable as I can because, I'm not in this for anything else than to, hopefully help people.
And that's great to hear. For the people listening, I have read the sample that is available. It is very interesting and a powerful story to read. I definitely recommend anybody to pick that up, to purchase it, to help support Keegan here and read his story. I will definitely hopefully pick up the paperback because I like holding a book when I read
So
it.
do I. I only read my wrestling books in paperback. My sister asked me if I would read them online on like the Kobo thing. I said absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'll only read them if I have the real book.
I
So that's why I wanted to get paperback too, because there's a lot of people who like to hold the book to read it. And again, if the book's essential message is that if you have some sort of mental illness or you have depression, which is an overused term, and a lot of people actually don't really know what it is, but it's not temporary sadness. It's something over a long period of time that helps not make you functional in day-to-day life. So if you suffer from even anxiety or depression or even sadness or whatever, hopefully you can read the book and find a passion, whether it's wrestling, hockey, school, education, whatever you want to do and you love. Use it as something to motivate you in the future so you don't end up getting down in the dumps and thinking, I have nothing left to live for. So that's essentially the main message of the book. And, hopefully some people see me in a different light because of that book, because, at school I was known to be intimidating because I always had my headphones in and I'd pace and I wouldn't talk. So hopefully you can actually hear me talk for once.
Well, it's a great message that you're putting out there. It's a message that hopefully a lot of people that need it can hear it. And I'm glad that you have taken the time to share your story in this book. And
Thank you.
When the book's released, you can come back on here. You can talk about the book as well.
Absolutely.
I would love to have people learn more about your story because it's definitely something that should be told more. And I definitely recommend to anybody listening to pick it up. And I will send me the links through Twitter. I will promote it when I put on this episode. So if anybody can find the links through there, through the episode description. And I will also tag Keegan's Twitter so you can give him a follow as well.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. It was a fun time to talk about the Undertaker and talk about our experiences of meeting the Deadman and about the people that we've met and our fandom for Undertaker in general. So I really appreciate you contacting me and get me on the show, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Of course, I'm looking forward to future episodes with you. Like everything with Undertaker, just scratching the surface.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. We broadly went over like his feuds and stuff. We haven't even gotten into all the in-depth stuff yet.
Yeah. So there's plenty more to come with the episodes we can do. As I tell all my guests that come on here, just because you're on here once, you're welcome back all the time because, you're just scratching the surface of Undertaker. You're not even, getting into everything else that made him popular with us and popular with all the creatures of the night around the world.
Well, yeah, he's definitely touched a lot of us in terms of our childhoods and him, and like I said a million times, him and Kurt are my childhood heroes, and without those two, I'm probably not where I am today, even alive, because I would watch their matches just to get me through the day and pass the time for when I wasn't feeling well. So Undertaker's been a very instrumental part.
Yeah. And he has for me as well. He's a lot of his matches have gotten me through a lot of tough times, and it's something that we can definitely touch upon on another episode together.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you again, Keegan, for joining me. It was a pleasure, and it was a great episode.
It was my honor. Anytime, man.
Thank you so much, and have a great day. And I hope all of my listeners have enjoyed this. And hope you look forward to hearing from Keegan again on a future episode as well.
Thank you, man.
Anytime. Thank you.